Caddis Maximus here, this time with a quick review of the Harbor Freight Icon B2G12 13-inch 3/8" drive professional breaker bar. Harbor Freight has been coming out with this Icon series for their premium grade of hand tools, and what's kind of interesting is now they're doing two things. One, filling out sets. They did have a large 1/2" drive long handle breaker bar, and that would be this one right here, the Pittsburgh Professional. What's interesting is it's been rebranded. They actually sold out of the Pittsburgh branded ones, and these are now Icons, but they're the very same thing. What they didn't have was a 3/8" drive version like this one here. On the shelf, I believe the price was $35, so it was quite a bit of money. They do advertise a lifetime warranty, and being Icon, you should be able to just walk in and swap it out. And considering Harbor Freight has so many stores now, it's actually quite reasonable. And I think it's just a fine breaker bar. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of other YouTube reviews of people testing its strength. And I'm sure it will survive 250 foot-pounds or so. If it's really good, it'll go up to 300 foot-pounds. If we take a close look, one thing I do like is it is pretty even there. One of the things you can look at when you're looking at any of these kinds of tools with flex heads or these breaker bars on the shelf is the grinds when they finish out the forging on the head here is not always even, and actually on this one it's pretty darn nice, although you can see there's just a little bit of taper where they overground just a little bit too much there, although they did get it centered, and it sometimes is really annoying when it's like really thin on one side and really thick on the other. That's just a personal pet peeve, and this is actually thankfully quite nice. A large hex cross screw. It actually has quite a bit of friction, which I do appreciate. And it's pretty tight fitting in there, and that's another thing I really appreciate. Many breaker bars will be quite a bit of play where you'll be able to take the anvil and it'll rock back and forth, and that doesn't happen on this one, so I do appreciate it. And I've always liked the style. This Snap-on has done this for a long time, where they kind of round out the anvil rather than it being kind of more square, such as on this GM Power Torque version. One thing it does not have is a ball detent for using it in a straight position, so once you break the fastener, it's a little bit more difficult to get it dead straight, so you can actually use this as a spinner handle. The steel goes all the way up to about 1 inch from the end, and they do have a non-comfort grip version, and it's indeed 12 inches long. This one just has another inch of plastic, so it's the 13-inch version. Overall, I think it's just fine, and from Harbor Freight. Although you do have a few other choices. For like $20, you can get this GM Power Torque one at O'Reilly's Auto Parts. If we look at the part number here, it's a GM 6111, and even though it may have not as aesthetically pleasing an anvil or a head, because it's really squared off here, they even bothered around it. It's actually a nice, strong, rigid breaker bar. I like the grip. And it also has a 3/8" drive extension, so it's both a breaker bar and an extension, which I do appreciate. And it has a ball detent. So to tell you the truth, maybe you really like the comfort grip, or you're just going to Harbor Freight, and this would be just a fine breaker bar. It does look pretty nice, I do admit that. But I think in usefulness, the Tecton would be pretty nice. And this GM one would, just by having a ball detent, which makes it easy to put in the straight position, and having it have the 3/8" drive, which I also appreciate, makes it really a more useful tool. And I would definitely take this GM one over the non-comfort grip. I do like comfort grips, though, I'll admit, just because a larger diameter is easier to get a hold of. It's a little bit softer with that rubber overmolding, although it is quite thin. And if you're ever working where it's like, a non-heated shop or it's really cold, grabbing a hold of this, the bare steel oftentimes can freeze your hands. So what's nice about the comfort grip is it is a lot more insulating in cool weather. Anyway, just to compare it to, say, AutoZone, the Titan long handle ratchet, this is the part number 12161. We can see that it's a little bit longer, maybe 1 inch longer than the Titan. The Titan's 12 inches long. So if you don't have a long handle 3/8" ratchet, these Titans for me have been pretty strong. I'd probably get that and the GM breaker bar for about the same cost as this Harbor Freight Icon. And I really had to look more than once to verify the price on this, and was quite surprised that it was $35. And it appears to be a nice breaker bar. And from the other YouTube videos from the previous Pittsburgh professional breaker bars, I'm sure it's going to be strong and as tough, very close to any of the other name brands. So although it's still a lot cheaper than, say, a Snap-on or a Mac or even a Proto, there's a huge number of tool manufacturers now. It used to seem back in the old days, 50s, 60s, 70s, there was a ton of tool manufacturers. There's actually just as many, if not a whole lot more now. So you have a whole lot of choices. And when you get into that, say, $35 price range for a long handle 3/8 breaker bar, it does open your horizon. So I recommend you do a little bit of research. Just because there may be something that suits your fancy that may have different features, such as this GM Power Torque one. Otherwise, as far as the tool, I think it's reasonable. I think it's a pretty good quality breaker bar and a lifetime warranty. It is aesthetically pleasing. They really did do a pretty good job. The beam is real straight. I would go for it. It's just not, I would say, as good of a deal as maybe you would hope it would be from Harbor Freight. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.